Hello, today I am going to talk about symbols. So the purpose of what I'm doing, or hope to accomplish with all of these videos, is trying to teach you how to draw, not necessarily by specific techniques, but by understanding how the way we think affects how we see and how we can use that to make images. So what I'm talking about today is symbols. What a symbol is basically a representation of a thing. Like that's a face. That's a very small face. So what happens is our mind takes a real sort of image like that and compresses it down into something like this. Like, oh, I saw a face. So obviously this turns into that. But yeah, so what the hell is happening here? I think is the question. How does the hoff turn into something like here, this handsome devil? How does he turn into, a jaw, the dreamy eyes, ears, amazing hair? You gotta draw the amazing hair, I guess. Like, how does he turn into this? Right? Like, how does the hoff turn into, like, this bunch of crappy lines? Well, what's happening is that in our heads, this is what we're actually seeing is in our mind is this. But since we don't know that's happening, and we try to draw our memory, what we end up getting is just this simplification. So, like, it's actually great that this happens, that our mind is doing this, because there's no room for all this crap, right? There's no room for every pore on David Hasselhoff's face. If there were, well, there wouldn't be any room to remember other things like how to buy food at the grocery store or how to drive a car. We wouldn't be able to remember that stuff because it would all be filled up with just the hoff, right? And we've got other crap to do. So what I want to talk about is that knowing that this happens, we can sort of focus on specific details. Like, for instance, the shading, right? Like I drew that outline of the nose and the face, but if I know something about shading, I can kind of work out more details. So I don't have to know everything about the hoff because I did it initially. Like my mind said he's got this chin, this jaw, so that's what I drew. And as a child, I was incredibly frustrated by this. You're thinking, I know what people look like. Why is it that I get like this when I put pen to paper? Well, the reason is because we haven't sort of realized, we haven't taught ourselves that a face has eyes with these little kind of wrinkles on them. We all know that we've got eyeballs and irises and pupils and so on. And we know sort of where they go, but we don't exactly know. So moving on, while I work on the hoff, I think being aware, first of all, that this is happening is huge. It's very important, and I'm not sure we talk about this. We talk about there's common mistakes, and the reason that those mistakes happen are because in our heads we're compressing this into certain things. So you want to kind of remember, if you know how a face works, you want to remember like 5 or 6 points so that we can kind of put that information back, so that after when we're doing our drawing, we can make it look like the hoff. I'm still looking at this picture, right? Frankly, because he's so damn handsome, and I'm just using it as a reference because I can't remember, right? That's why you have a reference. If you could remember everything, you wouldn't need it. Yeah. So the rest of this is talking not necessarily about symbols that we use to draw with. Like, we can draw a symbol for an eye, just very simply, and we kind of wow, that's tiny. We kind of know that that represents an eye, and this is a circle, but somehow, even just putting 2 other little circles on there, we can recognize it sort of as a face, right? So it's like the most basic face. Put on a 3rd one and it's even closer. So as you start adding details, it may or may not look more realistic. The thing is that at some point it's going to start looking like a physical object if we have enough detail. But symbols also work in other ways, more disturbing ways. I was thinking, you can talk about a country. Like, in some regards, it is just a geographical landmass, and in some ways, it is a symbol that represents the people living there, as well as the geography. It is sort of a symbol of the culture that corresponds to a particular place, like French culture, for instance. And sometimes people will want to switch a real object with a symbol. And this is something that you kind of need to be aware of. For one, it'll help you draw, but it'll also, it's more than anything, I guess. It's just something to think about. That, am I thinking about this real physical thing, or am I thinking about the representation of it? And using that as a symbol, like for instance, recent attacks on a country, let's call it France, it was immediately, an attack on France, but more kind of literally, it was attack on people, individuals, not an entire country, was attacked. I don't mean to sort of trivialize what happened, but you've got to think about, why would people want you to think that this was an attack on a country instead of attack on a group of people, like just a group of individuals, not like French people, which is another sort of thing. Why would we associate an attacker with a symbol, instead of, saying shootings are perpetrated by a group is different than, your domestic murder, right? So, just not that I want to explain how to think about it one way or the other, but just sort of saying that there's a lot going on, right? And you need to know, well, I'd say you need to know, but that's my opinion, I guess. It creates a wider understanding and sort of helps you think. What I'm trying to do is help think objectively about things. Help think, objectively about the hoff instead of thinking, two eyes and amazing hair, right? And a nose, of course. And probably a hamburger. Sesame seeds and a bottle of beer, right? Knowing that we can sort of identify a symbol gives us an opportunity to think about what is missing from that, what aspects are missing from this representation, right? So if we think about what aspects are missing from the representation of a face, we can learn to improve our drawing. And if we ask ourselves, what are we losing when we think of a representation of a people, we can start to see things in a different light. Alright, I'm gonna wrap that up. This is the hoff. I'm not quite finished, but I'm finished. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed today, etc., etc.